Ginger jokes, redhead jokes. Q. What's the difference between a ginger and a brick? A. At least a brick gets laid. Q. How does every redhead joke begin? A. By looking over your shoulder. Q. What do you call a gay ginger? A. Flaming. Q. What's the difference between a ginger and a vampire? A. One is a pale, blood-sucking creature that avoids the sun. The other is a vampire. Q. Why are the Harry Potter films unreal as a sea? A. A ginger kid has two friends. Q. How many ginger people does it take to change a light bulb? A. None. They prefer to sit in the dark. Q. What do redheads and McDonald's have in common? A. You've never had it so good and so fast. Q. What do you get when you cross a Jamaican and a ginger? A. A gingerbreadman. Q. What do you call it when a redhead goes off the deep end? A. A ginger snap. Q. What do gingers look forward to later on in life? A. Gray hair. Q. What do you call a red-headed ninja? A. A jinga. Q. What's the difference between ginger pussy and a bowling ball? A. You could eat a bowling ball if you had to. Q. Why are ginger kids lucky? A. They get their own room when they stay at Michael Jackson's house. Q. How can two redheads become invisible in a crowd of three? A. When they're with a blonde. Q. Why do redheads take the pill? A. Wishful thinking. Q. What do you call a redhead with an attitude? A. Normal. Q. What's shorter than an Asian's dick? A. A ginger's temper. Q. What book will never make a woman wet? A. 50 Shades of Ginger. Q. What's the fastest way to a man's heart if you're a redhead? A. Through his ribcage. Q. What's the advantage of a blonde over a redhead? A. You can at least ignore a blonde safely. Q. What's the difference between this joke and sex? A. Gingers will get this joke. Q. How do you get a redhead's mood to change? A. Wait 10 seconds. Q. What's the difference between dating a redhead and putting your hand in a blender? A. There's always a 50/50th chance the blender isn't on. Q. What do you call a good-looking man with a redhead? A. A hostage. Q. How do gingers reach orgasm? A. All alone. Q. What do you call a redhead with a blonde on either side? A. An interpreter. Q. Why was the first football pitch sketched out on a redhead's chest? A. They needed a level playing field. Q. Why are redheads flat-chested? A. It makes it easier to read their T-shirts. Q. What do gingers miss most about a great party? A. The invitation. Q. What's worse than Eric Cartman making fun of gingers on November 9, 2005 in Season 9 Episode 11, Ginger Kids? A. Being a ginger kid and having to go to school on November 10, 2005. Q. What do you call a redhead with large breasts? A. A mutant. Q. What is the difference between a redhead and a computer? A. Redhead won't accept a 3.5 inch. Q. What's the difference between a redhead and a lawyer? A. There's some things even a lawyer won't do to people. Q. How do you know when you've satisfied a redhead? A. She unties you. Q. When do you call a ginger sexy? A. If she's a brunette named Ginger. Q. Why don't gingers visit Pamplona, Spain in July? A. Running of the bulls. Q. What do you call a ginger at a party? A. Unwelcome. Q. What do redheads and McDonald's have in common? A. You've never had it so good and so fast. Q. What do you call a ginger prostitute? A. Orange pay as you go. Q. What do you call an attractive male with a ginger lady? A. A gigolo. Q. What do extinct dinosaurs and gingers have in common? A. Not enough. Q. what do you get when you mix Raggedy Ann and the Pillsbury Doughboy together? A red-headed bitch with a yeast infection. Q. What's safer, a redhead or a piranha? A. The piranha. They only attack in schools. Q. Why aren't there any more redhead jokes? A. Someone told them to a redhead. Q. How do you get a redhead to argue with you? A. Say something like I'm one of those males who love redheads, jokes. Q. What do you call a redhead with an attitude? A. Normal. Q. Why are gingers like guns? A. Keep one around long enough, and you going to want to shoot it. Q. Why is it called the Virgin Islands? A. Only gingers live there. Q. Why did God invent color blindness? A. So someone will fancy the ginger kids. Q. What type of trains don't let gingers ride? A. The soul train. Q. What do you call a soldier with a smile on his face and a piece of red hair between his two front teeth? A. Glad he ate her. Q. What's the difference between a dead possum on the road and a dead ginger? A. The possum was probably on its way to meet friends. Q. What do you call a redhead who masturbates more than twice a day? A. Terrorist. Q. What kind of beds do gingers sleep on? A. Tempur-Pedics. Q. What do you call a ginger in a porn film? A. Cameraman. Q. What's the difference between a terrorist and a ginger? A. You can negotiate with a terrorist. Q. What's the best thing about being ginger? A. You know you weren't adopted. Q. Why do gingers burn when they go out in the sun? A. Natural selection. Q. What's the difference between a shoe and a ginger? A. A shoe has a sole. Q. What's the difference between dating a redhead and putting your hand in a blender? A. There's always a 50/50th chance the blender isn't on. Q. How do you know when a redhead has been using a computer? A. There's a hammer embedded in the monitor. Q. What's the only thing redheads drink? A. Ginger ale. Q. How do gingers do a high five? A. Clap. Q. How do you start an argument with a redhead? A. Say something. Q. How do you know you're adopted? A. When you're the only ginger in the family. Q. How does a ginger answer her phone on a Saturday night? A. Wrong number. Q. What do you call a ginger kid eating a carrot? A. Cannibalism. Q. How do you cure a ginger? A. Chemotherapy. Q. What do you call a ginger whose phone rings on a Saturday night? A. Shocked. Q. Did you hear about the dyslexic KKK member? A. He went around killing gingers. Q. What's the differences between Michael Jackson and a ginger? A. Michael Jackson actually had sex. Q. How do you get a redhead's mood to change? A. Wait 10 seconds. I dumped my girlfriend after finding out how much she hated gingers. Not nearly enough. I saved 4 gingers from drowning in a lake. I saved it as a JPEG. A boy walks up to a ginger and the boy asks, how does it feel to be the Wendy's symbol? You know what, I don't really care, just go get me a small Frosty. One-liners. My wife asked me to prepare our son for his first day of school. He's a ginger, so I punched him in the face and stole his lunch money. SWAG. Sex with a ginger. If a redhead guy works at a bakery, does that make him a gingerbread man? If a Dementor's kiss steals your soul, what has Ron Weasley got to worry about? Freckles give a ginger its powers. If someone tells you a secret and says not to tell a soul, can you tell a ginger? There's always that one ginger that claims to be strawberry blonde. You say tall redhead. I say ginger of. They're basically the same thing. Want to survive a horror movie? Be a ginger. You can't die if you don't. Have a soul. I'm a ginger and this crazy. But here's my sunscreen, I use it daily. You can't have a soulmate if you don't have a soul. Gingers are a lot like anal sex. They are both a pain in the ass. Went to a ginger convention, not a soul showed up. How weird. Ariel, Little Mermaid, is a ginger and had a soul. She could have been the first, but she sold it though. If Monday were a person, it would be a ginger. A tan redhead is like a smart blonde. We all know you're faking it. You're just jealous that my hair color can be found in rainbows and yours can only be found in the dirt. Lindsay Lohan was arrested again. I'd say send her to Azkaban except the Dementors will have no effect on her, she's a ginger. You're a ginger, therefore your opinion is invalid. Notice how in Harry Potter the Dementors never go for Ron. My phone just autocorrects ginger to soulless. If you're not dating a redhead, raise your hand. If you are, raise your standards. That unexpected awkwardness when a ginger speaks without permission. Crying. I was shopping today, in the local Sam's Club, when I heard a member of staff crying, quite loudly. When I saw the member of staff, I realized what all the commotion was about, and I don't blame him. I'd cry too if I was ginger. Birth control. So I was recently reading that condoms are effective only 97% of the time, and I thought that's not good enough. So I tried getting my girlfriend to use the pill. This is apparently 98% effective. So then I tried the female condom, and found that to be 99% effective. But after all this I still strove for a method that is 100% effective. So yesterday I dyed my hair ginger. Magic lamp. A ginger man finds a magic lamp and when he rubs it a genie pops out. Ah, hell, says the genie, what do you want? The ginger says, I want a huge mansion with 100 rooms and 20 floors, all made of pure gold. The genie looks at him and says, don't be an idiot, do you have any idea how much gold that would take? That's impossible. Pick something else. So the ginger says, I want everyone to stop making fun of my hair color. The genie says, so this mansion, you want sweet bathrooms. Stepsisters. A redhead tells her blonde stepsister, I slept with a Brazilian. The blonde replies, oh my god. You slut. How many is a Brazilian? Rich and poor. A rich man and a poor man are both buying anniversary gifts for their wives. What are you getting your wife? Asks the poor man. And the rich man says I'm getting her a diamond ring and a Marquise. Why both? Asks the poor man. And the rich man says that way if she doesn't like the ring she can still enjoy the Marquise when she returns the ring. And then the rich man asks the poor man, what are you getting your wife? And the poor man says she's a ginger, I'm buying her a pair of slippers. And a dildo. That way if she doesn't like the slippers she can go fuck herself. Doctor. A doctor goes into a hospital ward to see a pregnant lady, who has had terrible stomach cramps and fears for the unborn child. Well, my dear, there's good news and bad news. We've run some tests and the bad news is that your baby has ginger hair. Oh no. She replies, what's the good news? The doctor replies, it's dead. Two Scousers are on holiday in Amsterdam and visit a brothel. Have you got a fat, ginger bird with no teeth, a heroin addiction and a minge like a vandalized bus seat? They ask. You boys are really kinky, says the madam. Are we fuck? They reply. We're looking for our mum.